Welcome to the International Culinary Institute. My name is Chef Humberto Guardiola. I'm one of the professors here at the Institute. And today we're going to be showing you how to make a gluten-free pasta. Now, gluten, celiac disease, something that affects those conditions. Barley, wheat, and rye. Anything that is a byproduct of those three things are a big no-no for celiacs, right? So we want to make sure that we can avoid all those things, but have a nice pasta dough that we can have stretched and really nice. Alternative, almond flour, cassava flour, rice flour, potato flour, and also chickpea flour. In addition, nowadays we can also use black bean flour and so on and so forth. The problem with this type of flours, is they don't have the elasticity that the gluten gives us. For that reason, we're going to utilize in two types of flour and xanthan gum or guar gum. Both of them are going to help those type of flours to bind and allow us to stretch it very identical to gluten. So let's start. Well, we're going to start first by adding, 12 ounces of chickpea flour and 4 ounces of potato starch, okay? These are going to help with the texture of a real flour, right? Epi flour. First thing, I'm gonna incorporate all of them. Once I finish that incorporating, I'm gonna add my xanthan gum. I'm gonna roll them incorporated them for a couple of seconds, and then I'm gonna add my eggs. As regular pasta goes, 1 pound of flour, 2 to 3 eggs, depending on their size. In this case, I'm gonna add 3 eggs, and I'm gonna add 1 ounce of water. Why 1 ounce of water? Well, water is gonna help balance the moisture in here. Chickpea flour and potato starch absorb a lot of moisture. So in a regular pasta though, we will not need to add our water, because it won't absorb the moisture as this type of flours that we're using. As you can see in here, we're forming a dough, and soon enough you'll see how the whole thing becomes one. The key important thing in this process is that we work enough this dough for the xanthan gum to work it to start developing that elasticity that is important in pasta. All right, you can see how it's becoming a dough, but it's still a little loose. So now you see how this dough is becoming a nice mass. What we want to do is work it to develop that, so the xanthan can develop that elasticity. This is going to take 3 to 5 minutes, all right? Now that our dough has been worked and we have a nice mixture, we are going to let it rest on the refrigeration for at least 40 minutes, okay? All right, so we have left our dough rest for 35 minutes, and you can see how nice and elastic it is. It resembles almost identical to the dough of a regular pasta dough made with gluten, right? Now, what we want to do, utilizing our same chickpea flour, we're going to lightly dust our working surface, and we are going to stretch our dough so we can start putting them into the rollers. All right, we want to progressively thin our pasta dough, because if we try to do it from too thick into too thin all at once, we're gonna crumble the dough. So we wanna be careful with this. And in here you can see how we are rolling it. We go from one area, we flip it so we can have a more uniform surface. Now that we have rolled it, we are going to pass it to our first dial, and we're going to progressively go from the widest to the thinnest, okay? So in here, we're going to start doing this. You're going to make sure that your pasta machine is nicely secure to your table, as this is going to put a lot of pressure. Right? I'm going to cut it so we can have. And then if you need to, from time to time, dust it a little more so it doesn't stick to the rollers. Normally I like to pass them twice to the same dial. And then we go switching the dials to from the widest to the thinnest, okay? Just for demonstration purposes, I'm just gonna go to this thickness. And I already have some pasta sheets done. In here, you can see how thin it is, as you can see the back of my fingers on the back of the pasta. And you can see in here how thin it is. So I'm gonna switch. In here we have for spaghetti or linguine. We're gonna be doing linguine. So we're gonna come in here and we're gonna come and put it right in here. To prevent from sticking, you wanna add a little flour as you go. Okay, and we're gonna be ready to cook our pasta. Now, just like fresh pasta, gluten-free pasta cooks when it's freshly made 2-3 minutes at the most. When it's dry, then you want to cook it for about 10 minutes. But since this is so fresh, we're just going to dump it in here. We want to make sure that all the different noodles are well separated. And we want to stir it. So as they start coagulating, or I should say jellifying, all right, the starches start jellifying, they don't stick to each other. All right? If you notice in here, it's almost instantaneously how the pigmentation of the pasta changes from a pale yellow to a nice beige. Okay? We're gonna add this in here. We're gonna cook them for 2 more minutes. And while that is going, I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna start heating up my pan, because I'm gonna start cooking the pasta with a beautiful pesto that we have made. Okay? So what is pesto? Pesto is a mixture of basil, pine nuts, garlic, olive oil, okay? And obviously a little salt to give flavor. In here we have a basil butter that we have done. And once it's nicely melted, we're gonna take this pasta in here. As you can see, it's jellifying really nicely. And we're gonna go drain it lightly, put it straight into our pan, start cooking it with our pesto and our butter. We're gonna drain it lightly. We want to be careful not to overcrowd our saute pan. Overcrowd means when we add too much elements that the saute pan gets overcrowded and doesn't allow us to cook properly. All right, I just put in there my pesto. And I'm just gonna lightly stir everything up. You wanna control your fire, not too hot because it could burn the bottom and give us really bitter flavors and a nasty aftertaste, right? Now that we have our pasta nicely coated, I'm just gonna come in here. I have a little bit of salt, just a drizzle of salt. And I'm gonna clean my area really quick so I can be ready for plating, okay? All right, so now we're ready to plate. As you can see, I hope you can smell, but the pasta looks excellent. The smells are to die for. So I'm gonna have a pitching fork and I'm gonna roll it very gently. And we can put this in here, just in the center of the plate, a nice, simple dish. But we can even use this as a base, for example, and use it for a spaghetti carbonara. Or we could do many other preparations. Gluten-free lasagna. We can take those meatless burger that we use, that make sure we can use it to create some meatballs and add them in there and have a completely vegan dish that will not have anything to envy those normal dishes that we do with regular gluten pasta or even regular beef meatballs. So I hope you like it.